Our Academy's program is rooted in the conviction that effective indigenous leadership will be the key to progress in the developing world. And as the pace of change accelerates, it is clear that the human mind and heart will be the central factors in determining social wealth. Yet in too much of the developing world, the capacity to realize the potential of the human resource base is still sadly limited. Too many of those who should be the leaders of tomorrow are being left behind today. And even those students who do manage to get a good education often pursue their dreams in far-off places and never go home again. The result is a widening gap between the leadership these communities need and the leadership their educational systems deliver. For much of human history, leaders have been born into their roles, or have fought their way in, or have bought their way in. But in this new century, a time of unusual danger and stirring promise, it is imperative that aristocracies of class give way to aristocracies of talent, or to use an even better term, to meritocracies. Is it not a fundamental concept of democracy itself that leadership should be chosen on the basis of merit? Educating the leadership must imply something more than the mere development of rote skills. Being proficient at rote skills is not the same thing as being educated. And training that develops skills, important as they may be, is a different thing from schooling in the art and science of thinking. The temptation to inculcate rather than to educate is understandably strong among long frustrated populations. In many such places, public emotions fluctuate between bitter impatience and indifferent skepticism. And neither impatience nor indifference are favorable atmospheres for encouraging reasoned thought. But in an age of accelerating change, when even the most sophisticated skills are quickly outdated, we will find many allies in the developing world who are coming to understand that the most important skill anyone can learn is the ability to go on learning. In a world of rapid change, an agile and adaptable mind, a pragmatic and cooperative temperament, a strong ethical orientation, these are increasingly the keys to effective leadership. And I would add to this list the capacity for intellectual humility, which keeps one's mind constantly open to a variety of viewpoints and which welcomes pluralistic exchange. These capacities over the long term will be critically important to the developing world. They happen to be the same capacities which programs like the IB and the Aga Khan Academies are designed to elicit and inspire.
یا علی مدت بانجوخ کاریباو و برنامه تأملی در شب‌های جمعه امشب خوش آمدید. اسم من انوشکا راجان است و افتخار دارم که امشب میزبان شما هستم. میخواهم به خانواده‌های با مذاهب مختلف از کانادا و سراسر جهان که برنامه من را تماشا میکنند نیز خیر مقدم بگویم. ممنونم که امروز با ما هستید. برنامه امشب یکی از آن پروگرام هایی است که برای من خیلی دلچسب است. امشب ما درباره شکل‌دهی فکر فردا و فعالیت‌های اکادمی‌های آقا خان تمرکز می‌کنیم. من خودم یکی از فارغ التحصیلان اکادمی آقا خان در مومباسا هستم. البته این مسیر آموزش و پرورش است که مرا به اینجا کشاند و امروز در خدمت شما قرار دارم. اجازه دهید درباره تحصیلاتم در اکادمی برایتان بگویم. من در مومباسا، کنیا که یک شهر زیبای ساحلی است متولد و همانجا بزرگ شدم. هنگامی که اکادمی آقا خان در سال 2003 افتتاح شد، افتخار آن را داشتم که شامل این مؤسسه آموزشی گردم. آنچه مرا تحت تاثیر قرار داد این است که در واقع کارمندان و معلمان آنجا بسیار تلاش می‌کردند تا مطمئن شوند که ما فراتر از تحصیلات به طور کلی به عنوان یک فرد و یک شهروند جهانی تربیت شویم. برخی از جالبترین خاطرات من شرکت در پروژه‌های خلاقیت با هم‌صنفی‌هایم، اشتراک در کلاس‌های موسیقی، درام، هنر، ورزش و مهمتر از همه پروژه‌های خدمات اجتماعی بود. مولانا حاضر امام در یکی از بازدیدهایش از اکادمی هنگامی که من دانشجو بودم به کلاس ما آمد و با ما در مورد پروژه‌های خدمات اجتماعی صحبت کرد. حاضر امام به این موضوع بسیار علاقه‌مند بود که آنچه را که ما انجام می‌دهیم کیفیت زندگی جوامعی را که ما در میان آنها زندگی می‌کنیم بهبود می‌بخشد. این خاطره بسیار گرانبهایی برای من بود، زیرا جایگاهی را که اکادمی برای من فراهم نموده بود باعث شد تا من بورسیه کامل رهبرانی بین‌المللی فردا را در UBC به دست آورم و ادامه تحصیل دهم. حالا من می‌دانم که اگر اکادمی نمی بود این پیشرفت من ممکن نبود. اکادمی مسیر زندگی مرا به طور کامل تغییر داد. من توسط تنها مادرم بزرگ شدم که نمی‌توانست هزینه تحصیلاتم را در دانشگاه بین‌المللی پرداخت کند. ما حتی منابع لازم برای پرداخت هزینه‌های اکادمی را هم نداشتیم. اما همه این مخارج را اکادمی پرداخت و اکنون نیز با ارائه بورسیه کامل برای دانشجویان واجد شرایط هزینه تحصیلی آنها را فراهم می‌کند تا آنها بتوانند بدون توجه به پیشینه اقتصادی و اجتماعی خود به تحصیلاتشان ادامه دهند. در سال 2007 هنگامی که ما فارغ التحصیل شدیم، مولانا حاضر امام بار دیگر برای مراسم تهداب‌گذاری مجتمع مسکونی اکادمی تشریف آوردند. شکرگزارم که من و چند دانش آموز دیگر فرصت این را داشتیم که با حاضر امام ملاقات کنیم و تفکرات و تجربات فوق‌العاده‌ای که در اکادمی داشتیم با ایشان به اشتراک بگذاریم. حضور در اکادمی به طور بنیادی مسیر زندگی من را تغییر داده است و من همیشه سپاسگزار دیدگاه مولانا حاضر امام هستم که یک چنین شبکه‌ای از اکادمی‌ها را تأسیس کرد که کارکنان و معلمان آن در امر آموزش و پرورش ما تلاش نمودند و این فرصت مرا قادر ساخت تا رشد کنم و در مرحله بعدی تحصیلاتم موفق باشم و من از این بابت برای همیشه سپاسگزار خواهم بود. پس بیایید سفری را برای دانستن اهمیت تحصیل و درهای زیادی را که بر روی ما می‌گشاید آغاز کنیم. با یک ویدیوی کوتاه درباره اکادمی‌ها شروع می‌کنیم و بعداً صحبتی داریم با سلیم بهاتیا، مدیر مؤسس اکادمی‌های آقا خان که دیدگاه‌های مولانا حاضر امام را درباره اکادمی‌ها به اشتراک می‌گذارد. سپس صحبتی داریم با دکتر گرهام رنجر، مدیر اکادمی‌های آقا خان که در مورد دستاوردهای کنونی اکادمی‌ها و برنامه‌های آینده آنها به ما معلومات ارائه خواهند داد و در آخر طبق معمول برنامه را با چند پارچه موسیقی پرنشاط و الهام بخش به پایان میبریم. اجازه دهید با ویدیوی کوتاهی درباره اکادمی‌ها شروع کنیم.
Now, every country needs educated professionals to help it grow, but developing countries traditionally lose out with the brain drain migration. The Aga Khan Academies, which are part of the Aga Khan Development Network, provide a world-class IB education to children, regardless of social and economic background, with a mission to produce homegrown leaders. We went to visit two of the academies in India and Kenya to find out why their alumni are so committed to helping to improve their home countries.
At the Aga Khan Academies in Mombasa in Kenya and Hyderabad in India, children and young people are learning today how to become the leaders of tomorrow. Both schools follow an international baccalaureate curriculum designed to give them a global view as well as a focus on local realities.
Joining this academy really enabled me to widen my horizon, broaden my prospects, and also provided me a vision to my ambition.
You take whatever you learn and actually apply it outside school, which is what I really enjoy. If I'm unable to find a connection to the real world, it doesn't make that much sense to me. And IB really allows you to do that.
Famous quote is, "We're the leaders of tomorrow," but actually I strongly believe that we're the leaders of today. What we do today is what shapes us.
And to give young people the skills to work in their home countries, the academies teach from an early age in both English and the national language where the school is located.
It's important to learn Kiswahili or also different languages because in Mombasa many people speak Kiswahili, so if you learn the language you'll be able to communicate with many people.
The IB curriculum talks about lifelong leaders, lifelong learners, and internationally minded people who are culturally rooted.
Nice to see you.
For the Academy's alumni, these are lessons in life they never forget.
It taught me the importance of looking back at where I come from, think about that others who are not as privileged as you are, and give back to them. Give them a little bit of that experience, help them improve their quality of life.
I was taught that in as much as you can achieve a lot of things academically and professionally, you also need to be ethical. And added to that is the desire and interest in working with the community, which was also born and developed here.
It's the vision and mission of the Aga Khan Academies to transform lives and communities. And with 16 more schools planned across Africa, Central and South Asia and the Middle East, it's hoped many more young people can take advantage of an education and ethos that offers this pluralistic and public-minded outlook.
بسیار خوب. امیدوارم که مثل من از این بخش لذت برده باشید. اجازه دهید اولین مهمان برنامه سلیم بهاتیا را خیر مقدم بگوییم. سلیم بهاتیا مدیر مؤسس اکادمی های آقا خان بود و از سال 2005 تا 2020 در این مقام خدمت کرده است. با عنوان مدیر مؤسس رهبری اکادمی های آقا خان را به عهده داشت. قبل از وظیفه‌اش در اکادمی، سلیم به عنوان رئیس انجمن صنایع الکترونیک و اطلاعات، عضو بورد هیئت مدیره شورای توسعه کارآفرینی، عضو اجرایی کنسورسیوم بین‌المللی مهندسان، عضو بنیاد آقا خان و کنسل ملی آمریکا و عضو کمیته رهبری جوایز موسیقی آقا خان بود. سلیم مدرک لیسانس خود را در رشته ساینس و مهندسی از دانشگاه لندن و مدرک ماستری خود را با رتبه اعلی از دانشگاه هاروارد به دست آورده است. اجازه دهید سلیم را خیر مقدم بگوییم.
Yalimadat Salim, thank you so much for being here with us today. We're so excited to have this conversation with you to learn more about the academies and Maulana Hazrat Imam's vision for these academies. If we can get started right at the beginning, you know, many members of the Jamaat know about the Aga Khan Education Services. Many of them have heard about the Aga Khan schools. You know, the very first one started in the early 1900s, and since then there's over 200 Aga Khan schools now. But can you tell us about Maulana Hazrat Imam's vision for the Aga Khan Academies and why it was important to create a separate institution from the Aga Khan Education Services?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Maulali Madat. Anoushka, it's a pleasure to be speaking to an alum, and an alum I remember all too well as the first graduating class out of the academy in Mombasa. Probably a good way to think about the vision is to think about what it would look like out in time when it's at a cruising level, when the academies are at a cruising level. Imagine that there will be 18 academies in 14 countries operating as a single learning community. Every year, this network will be graduating 1,500 students. And if you're looking 20 years from now, there'll be 10,000 well sought after alumni from this network. These students will have been selected on the basis of merit, regardless of the socioeconomic background. So they will come from all kinds of backgrounds. And many of them will be first generation high school completers and university entrants. These alumni will be pursuing diverse careers of their choice, the most appropriate careers of the time and at the best universities in the world. They will be leaders who are not only globally competitive, but they will strive for excellence. They will have a social conscience. They will strive for excellence, but they'll also care about the common good. They will know how to harness difference. That's important, isn't it, when we think about pluralism and what it ultimately means. And their families, their communities, their countries, and cross-country relationships will benefit as a result. And imagine how much these alumni will value the springboard that Hazrat Imam and the Ismaili community has given them. That is one way to think about the vision that Hazrat Imam has of the Aga Khan Academies.
Wow, that is truly remarkable. And I can say as an alum, I too appreciate the springboard that the Aga Khan Academies gave me to come here and continue my career. So, Salim, the Aga Khan Academies are all IB schools, or schools that follow the International Baccalaureate program. Would you be able to summarize what the IB program is for those who may not know, and perhaps share why it was so important to Maulana Hazrat Imam that the academies pursue the IB program?
Certainly, Anoushka. When you were there, we had mainly introduced the DP program. And I remember in those early days how the student body felt about it, the ones that were just about graduating or were about to take the last 2 years of their college, almost like of their high school, almost as if they were guinea pigs in this process. And we had started the primary years program. But today we have all three segments of the IB curriculum there: the primary years, the middle years, and the diploma program. And what is special about the IB program is that the IB program has probably three characteristics that are really important and helpful. One is that it's inquiry-based. And that inquiry-based means that students ask the questions and students find the answers. They develop the answers so that they really construct their understanding of the situation. Obviously, it's guided, as opposed to passively receiving the answers and the knowledge and the know-how from their teachers or from the textbooks. So inquiry is really important. The second is interdisciplinary. Really, really important thing is that in the IB curriculum, you look at big issues and you look at them through different lenses. The lenses of different subjects where you're solving a problem not narrowly, but holistically. And that's pretty important. And the third is breadth. Even in the diploma program, students, which is the last 2 years of the IB curriculum of the academy, students are expected to do a broad range of courses. Yes, they may specialize in some, but there's not over-specialization. And as you know, that the time is coming when specialization is going to have some value, but actually those people who can knit together the various disciplines, bring them together to solve complex problems, are going to be at a significant value.
Salim, you touched on something that I wanted to expand about a little bit. We talked about the holistic development of a student, and that's one of the things that has stuck with me, is that our time at the school was always more than about just our academics. Our teachers, our staff were always invested in our holistic development as an individual. And to that point, we had access to world-class resources for teaching and learning, drama, music, sports, art. Could you tell us why it was so important, or it is so important, to provide these world-class resources, especially in light of the cost factors that are required to provide, these world-class facilities to students, versus the importance of doing so?
Sure, Anoushka. We're trying to develop future leaders. And while it's important and helpful to understand the theories, the concepts, the skills on a paper form, and to have optional extracurricular or co-curricular activities, to develop fully leaders, it really helps for them to have an experience, to have an immersive experience. And that immersive experience is accomplished through a holistic student life program, a residential life program, where students are spending a lot of time. Imagine if you want to know how to value, to recognize diversity, how to value pluralism, but even more importantly then, how to harness that diversity and make people come together to achieve common objectives. That takes practice. That doesn't come by the occasional activity. It requires practice, immersion, doing it repetitively, having lots of different opportunities for it. And the Aga Khan Academy's curriculum, which provides the things that you mentioned, actually does a really good job of providing that opportunity for young people to have experience over the time that they're at the academy. Furthermore, when you think about what do sports do? Hashimam told us once, he said, when young people do their personal best in sports, when they really try hard to do their personal best in excelling at sports or co-curricular activities or the like, that personal best and that habit of excelling transfers to other aspects of their lives. And so having this variety of opportunity where students have the chance to go and really try out and get better and better and better and to be near professional grade quality at sports becomes extremely valuable and has a more holistic impact.
Absolutely. I can certainly understand that, and I think even relate. When the Academy first opened was the first time I ever saw a silver flute, first time I ever held one. And I learned, very basically how to play the flute at the Academy. And while that's not something, I've pursued as a career or in professional music, being able to express myself through music and being able to think creatively are both elements that I've taken on to my professional career. And so, having access to these resources has certainly helped me develop as an individual outside of, the math and the physics and the subjects that we studied. So there is certainly so much value in providing those resources for the students.
It builds a level of confidence as well. And that's one of the things that's very obvious when visitors come to the Academy and see young people being able to express themselves with such confidence and with such a sense of openness to ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that speaks to one of the IB learner profiles that I know we were always challenged to think about and to incorporate, was to be open-minded inquirers every day in all of our endeavors, whether we're receiving information, whether we're watching the news, whether we're, learning something new, always be open-minded. And that's another thing that has stuck, and I think with many Academy graduates. Salim, as an alum, the Academy is very close to my heart, and I know that one day I wish to be able to go back and render my service and my seva to this place that gave me, my start in life. And I know you recently also just completed a significant time and knowledge Nazrana assignment. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about that and what it meant to you to be able to offer this service to the Imam?
Well, it's an incredible blessing. in gratitude is really what I would say. Gratitude for the opportunity to play a part in the development of an initiative of the Imam that inshallah will serve and benefit the Jamaat and the people amongst which it lives for decades, for generations, inshallah. And alums have been contributing of their time and their knowledge, and members of the Jamaat have been contributing significantly of their time and knowledge to the academies over the last 10, 15 years. It's been an incredibly valuable thing for the academies and their growth. And those people have come away with a real deep appreciation for what it is that the academies are seeking to do and how critical a role that Hazrat Imam sees these institutions, these educational institutions, to play in the future of the Jamaat.
Oh, that is great. So this invitation to be a part of the academy life and to offer seva is open to everybody, and that's really wonderful. Salim, if we can build on a little bit of your experience, as we close out our conversation today, over the past decade, Shukr, you have had the opportunity to work closely with Maulana Hazrat Imam as the founding director of the academy. Are there any key learnings from working with Maulana Hazrat Imam that you would be able to share with the Jamaat today?
Sure. There are so many learnings, Anoushka. So many learnings. He has set such high standards. He has shown that one needs to think about excellence and achieving the ultimate best before thinking about the resource limitations. And then applying resource limitations as a way to force one to find a way to achieve those best goals and yet do it within the resource capabilities that exist. Many times we go in and we are optimizing all the way along and limiting what it is we can do to within the limits of our resources. And just turning that around to saying, okay, what is the purpose that we're trying to achieve and what will really, really best practice make it happen? I don't mean putting a Mercedes in place when a Volkswagen will do. That's not what I'm talking about. But in terms of reliability, in terms of getting the job done, it's what it is that needs to be done. There's the best tools to be able to do that, and then figuring out how to put them to use. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is the Imam. I have learned over these years that the Imam is constantly thinking about the welfare, the security, the quality of life of his murids. And very often I think, at least I found, that his time frame and his ambition, the scale of what he is looking to achieve, is far greater than anything we dare to think about. And so when we have that opportunity to work for him, then we have to keep that in mind, and with the humility to be open-minded to seeing that the trade-offs that we're used to making, not the skills certainly are very much desirable and helpful, but the trade-offs that we're willing to make may not be the trade-offs that the imamate would choose to make. So there's been tremendous learning, tremendous growth, and appreciation for the love and affection of Hazrat Imam.
Wow, that is so inspiring, and shukr that you had that incredible opportunity. Salim, thank you so much for spending your time with us today, for sharing so much information. It was insightful, it was inspiring, and it was really wonderful to connect with you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anoushka. It's really been my pleasure to be part of this. I have enjoyed sharing these thoughts with you and hopefully a wider audience. And I wish you the very, very best in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
با تشکر از سلیم به خاطر توضیحات در مورد بینشی وظیفوی و دیدگاه‌های راهبردی اکادمی‌های آقا خان. و اما سفر ما برای دانستن اکادمی‌ها تازه شروع شده است. بیایید به سراغ دکتر گرهام رنجر برویم که مدیر کنونی اکادمی‌ها هستند و ایشان توضیحات بیشتری در مورد فعالیت‌های کنونی و برنامه‌های آینده اکادمی‌ها برای ما ارائه خواهند کرد. قبل از این مقام دکتر رنجر از سال 2017 تا 2020 مدیر اکادمیک بودند. ایشان یک رهبر، یک آموزگار با تجربه معروف بین‌المللی با بیشتر از 35 سال تجربه کاری در سراسر دنیا هستند. قبل از پیوستن به اکادمی، دکتر رنجر مدیر پشتیبانی و ارزیابی در شورای ملی مکاتب بودند که مسئولیت نظارت بر کیفیت آموزش بیش از 700 مکتب با 114 عضو را داشتند. دکتر رنجر فارغ التحصیل دانشگاه کینگ کالج دانشگاه لندن هستند و دکترای آموزش و پرورش خود را از دانشگاه درهم بریتانیا به دست آوردند. اجازه دهید دکتر رنجر را خوش آمدید بگوییم.
Dr. Ranger, we just had a really wonderful opportunity to speak with Salim Bhatia about His Highness's vision for the academies. And it is a privilege also to be able to speak with you about the current successes and initiatives of the Academy. Now, you currently serve as the director of the Aga Khan Academies. Could you tell us a little bit more about what does your role as director entail? And are there any areas of focus perhaps that you have laid out as you lead this institution into the next 5 to 10 years?
For sure. Thanks very much for the question. I'm really pleased you had the opportunity to speak to Salim because he was involved so closely with laying the foundations of the Academy's network and worked so closely from His Highness's vision for the network. I'd want to point out that that the academies, along with AKS, are about to come together, merge together, and achieve greater synergies for Aga Khan education, pre-tertiary education, through the creation of the new agency, the Aga Khan Schools, under the overall leadership of the General Manager, Julian Drinkle. And Julian has just been with us a week or so far. But we are excited at that possibility. So we have a new board, which is chaired by His Highness. And within the landscape of the Aga Khan schools, the academies will retain a very unique identity. In many ways, the academies are a special project, a relatively young project of His Highness, and are very distinctly different from probably most other schools in the world, and certainly from many of the schools which bear the Aga Khan name. So the new agency will help define our strategies for achieving the strategic goals, and they are really to build out this integrated network that is developing with 3 open operational academies, a 4th one opening next year, and further development in growth and expansion.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Graham. When we think about the different schools in Mombasa, in Maputo, in Hyderabad, I often wonder, what does the student body makeup look like? Are most of our students from those countries or from those communities? Or do we tend to have international students coming to those schools? And, can even students from the Western world apply to the academies?
It's an interesting question because in many ways, 2 goals help shape our student body. First of all, fundamentally, we are a resource, an educational resource for the country and the region in which we are located. So we always want them to give back to their own societies, to their community, to their country, to their region, whatever it may be. Of course, Mombasa is our longest established academy. And from the first few years of graduates from Mombasa, now about 56% of those are back in East Africa, either on higher courses of study or working in that region from whence they came. Now, is 56% good or not so good? Well, in one sense, it's encouraging that many students, having been away to universities, often in the West, often in Canada, and have the opportunities that all of that offers, will then want to come back to their home country or their home region. But at the same time, 56% gives us headroom for development and improvement. You know, we want to do better than that. But it's not only the number, it's also what they're doing. And we want those young leaders to be leading in all fields of life, whether it's the arts, whether it's some aspect of development, whether it's business or entrepreneurship or politics, whatever it may be, but the ethical values of leadership, which we hope to develop through the Academy, are all important. So there's a strongly local and national dimension. At the same time, we are also there to benefit students, both from the Jamaat globally and others who maybe don't have the advantage of the kind of education we offer. And finally, and really importantly, we're here serving the global Jamaat. So we've had quite a long history now of bringing Tajik students and Tajik teachers to Mombasa. Likewise, Afghanistan, the students come to Hyderabad, and indeed our first graduating class has been this year, 2021, from Afghanistan, with those students graduating to Canada, the US, the Middle East, and elsewhere. And then much more recently, we've got the real privilege and challenge of welcoming students from Syria and from Iran to the Academy in Maputo as part of that program, that program, which is one way in which we can serve the Jamaat.
You touched on something and you said these academies are resources for the countries. Would you be able to speak to the roadmap of campus development and perhaps what sites His Highness, has identified for future academies, perhaps? And, if I can ask, do you think we would ever see an academy in North America, perhaps?
I hope so. But I do think with the changing nature of the world and the changing nature of schooling, there is opportunity for us to serve needs through establishing academies even more broadly. But it's perhaps not for me to say. I think the best thing to say is that His Highness personally directs the future locations of academies. He helps us by steering us and guiding us to particular sites of strategic importance. And I guess in my 4 or 5 years in working with AKDN, I've really learned that His Highness thinks very long term, very strategically, and that we're just that small microcosm of time in when we're working with the academies to establish them, and maybe we shouldn't look too far ourselves, because the needs of the global Jamaat and global needs will change and evolve, and we've seen so much of that recently. So I can say with confidence that our next academy that opened, there's one academy that's almost completed construction but has been well established and going really well, and that's in Maputo. We open the academies in phases. So Maputo opens in phases Clearly, any areas under construction are completely segregated, and the safety and well-being of the students and staff and parents comes first. But Maputo will be finished within a couple of years, and it looks amazing, and it's a wonderful environment in which to live and study. Dhaka in Bangladesh is our next project and our first academy in a predominantly Muslim country, which makes it an added exciting factor. It's a huge project in the context of AKDN in Bangladesh, and we will be opening to students and staff July 22, so just a year away, just over a year away. And then who knows? We know that there are certain areas of priority in the world, that rectangle of concern, for example, around encompassing Central Asia. And if you look at the map of projected academies, you will see Central Asia, Syria. You'll see a number of priority areas that have been identified by His Highness. However, what's the case for an academy in economically more developed economies? Well, I think the argument for having an academy in Canada, say, is a different one from having an academy in any of the existing locations. But I think as a centre of excellence, as a form of schooling that offers the Jamaat and those beyond the Jamaat opportunities that are different to the many other very good schools around, and having that opportunity to connect that academy not only in country to the system, but also globally to the rest of the academy's network in areas of maybe greater material need, is a really exciting possibility. And clearly there are huge advantages in having an academy in a location such as Canada, where it may in the future be a catalyst for future development of excellence across the whole network, not just in its region within North America. So I would say, in terms of the national asset, one of the very strong messages that's come from the beginning through His Highness's speeches about the academies is, in many ways, these are for students, but they're also for the profession of teacher educator. And our role, our obligation morally, is to develop the teaching profession to one that is worthy, that is laudable, that is exemplary. And can we play a part in that, in influencing the quality of pedagogy, the quality of teaching, the quality of teacher development through the country? I believe we can. I believe those kind of dividends and advantages are best seen after a number of years, and we're seeing them now in Mombasa, where the academy is consulted on by the government in curriculum development and plays a very active role with others, with other parties, in helping shape the future educational system of Kenya, where so much has been achieved.
Well, thank you for that insightful and detailed response, Graham. If I can bring it back to North America one more time, I understand that the academies and the province of Ontario signed a landmark agreement in 2015 that was then renewed in 2019. Could you tell us a little bit more about this agreement and perhaps any early successes that we have seen from it?
Yeah, indeed. I think, let me start with how important it is for the academies and for the Aga Khan schools to be part of agreements with provinces, with universities, with groups of universities. So the agreement with Ontario had two dimensions to it. One was focused on students and graduates from the academies having the opportunity to study in universities in the province of Ontario fantastic opportunity. So the agreement was signed in 2015, and from 2015 to 18, those 3 years, the province generously provided 30 tuition waivers for Academies graduates to any Ontario university. That was the first strand. I'll come back to it in a moment. The second strand was the placement of teachers from the province of Ontario, from public school system, into the academies on teacher placements of an extended time. Personally, I feel the universities gained a great deal from having these students in their care and on their regard. Therefore, the universities are gaining some of the really able, yes, higher IB point scoring diploma students, but also much more than that. They're gaining these students who've been serving others, having a curriculum that emphasizes ethics and pluralism and governance for civil society and the rest of it that makes up an academy's curriculum. So I think they are assets to the university. I think in terms of teachers, I actually think it's more challenging. I think it's really difficult for a teacher to come from the Canadian system or any other Western public system and be as effective and be able to make an even bigger contribution in one of the academies, because the cultural adjustment is really significant. The ways of doing things are very different. And for any expatriate coming into the academy, we have about, on average, across the network, about 80% of our teachers are local. They're nationals of the country concerned. So the other 20%, they're not there just to teach really well. That should be expected as a minimum. But they have to have a mindset where they are building capacity in others. They are building the leaders in the local teachers. Partnerships are crucial to the academies. They're crucial to our students in all kinds of ways. With a partnership with the province of Ontario, we were saddened that it's paused, and we hope that it will be reinvigorated, and those benefits that we've been able to measure from our students into our graduates and from those teachers, and the impact that those Canadian teachers have made on teachers in Kenya or in India, for example, it's palpable, then there's a great scope. And those teachers go back to the Canadian system as different teachers and as, I think, dare I say it, as better teachers. Not that they weren't without huge strengths already, but they learned so many different ways of doing things and so many ways that are shaped by culture. And I think that's important because we want all our teachers everywhere to be learners and growers and professionally alert to development and improvement.
Absolutely. I can certainly see that. And I think if we build on that and we think about the Academy's vision to educate future leaders of tomorrow, His Highness has said that perhaps one of the most important skills that we can give our leaders is helping them to position their learning within an ethical framework. How do the academies help students do this?
I think the values position that this isn't about indoctrination. I think this is about helping students see the nuances and the grey areas in ethical decisions and how decisions are made, for example, so that things aren't right or wrong in the minds of a person necessarily, but there are many ways to look at an issue in order to come to a conclusion that may be appropriate. Now, how does one develop an ethical set of behaviours in students? I think the modelling of adults is all important, the standard they set, the standards they set, the contributions they make. But I think we are united by a vision, a common vision. Practically everybody I've ever met working in an academy is the first reason they give when I say to them, why do you work here? Why do you want to work here? They would say that they're captivated by the mission and vision that's laid down by His Highness. Central to that is the development of ethical leadership, and therefore I think those things don't just happen by accident. I think one needs to have specific leadership development programs that put students in safe, but at the same time, situations where they are prepared to take a risk and they are faced with ethical decision-making choices and maybe ethical dilemmas, and they are learning what is the right thing to do. But they're not learning it by a code of ethics on the wall. They're learning it by ethical considerations being woven into whatever they're studying in an age-appropriate way. So even for our youngest children in the school, the kind of 4 or 5-year-old students, they're shaping their values framework for the future.
If I recall my time during the diploma program and our creativity, action and service projects, that's when many of these questions came to light. What shall we do? What's the right thing to do? And having the faculty and staff support those decision-making endeavors was really transformative to my own personal learning, and I can see how that could be transformative to the students. Graham, I wonder if you could share with us or touch on your work with the academies within the AKDN framework and your work with His Highness. How has that, what has that been like for you, and how has that had a personal impact on you?
Let me start with, if I may, personal story about when I was appointed. Forgive the personal reference, but Salim Bhatia, who was involved in my appointment, my former boss, when I was being offered the position, and it had taken months, it was AKDN can work very carefully, very thoroughly, very consultatively, and very slowly at times. And Salim offered me the position, but said to me, well, there's one comment that His Highness has made to you specifically. And I thought, gosh, what is this? And I didn't really know what to expect. And he said, remember the Aga Khan strands. Remember that these are not just IB schools like international schools, but that we have a very specific mission that is part of the AKDN approach to developing quality of life, and the academies have a role in that. Those are my words, not Salim's nor His Highness's, but the sentiment is there, and it shapes me because my career up to then had not been in it had been in the not-for-profit sector largely, but it had not been in the context of development. And what I've really gained from working within AKDN is the benefits of bringing the richness of the network to the student's experience. So, for example, we have a couple of projects going on now with the Agency for Habitat. We've had projects with the Aga Khan Museum in Toronto. We have projects with AKF, as one would expect, and we have a number of areas where the richness of AKDN is brought to the student's experience. I'll give one small example. Listening to a virtual lesson, so sometime over the last year or so, from a young student who perhaps is very, very resource poor in his background in Maputo, and he was about 11, 12 years of age. And he said, wow, that was the first time I've ever been to a museum. And what he'd been through was some virtual learning from the exhibition at the Aga Khan Museum in Toronto and had just been wowed by the sheer magnificence of the artifacts and the resources and the interpretation that goes with them in understanding more in his learning. Now, I think that's terrific. If we can do that and bring, say, work that's going on in the Aga Khan Trust for Culture, in urban conservation issues, into our students' learning, that's terrific. I also think when we have challenges, and often we're working, we're not doing easy things, we're working in difficult places, different challenging environments. I learned a lot from Salim in being more willing to reach out to others in the network who, frankly, when I joined, I didn't know existed, who could help me out and collaborate with me to help solve a problem. And I'll give one very simple example. It's been exceedingly challenging to bring the Syrian teachers and students from Syria to Mozambique, to the academy in Maputo. And without the support of the diplomatic office, without the support of an enormous number of people on the ground, including the National Council and the networks working with AKF and the National Council in Syria and beyond Syria, it just would not have been possible. So I think I've learned the hard way the value of consultation, the value of networking for the benefit of the learners in the academies. And I've gained a tremendous amount from that. And actually, it's given me a completely different perspective on my career and my contribution in education compared to the other roles I've had in maybe international schools, networks of schools in Hong Kong, in a university, in a national system. This has been unique, and one can always get up in the morning and say, this is, one, a privilege, two, it's humbling, and three, it's worth getting up for.
Graham, it's been so wonderful to hear from you today. I would love to get your thoughts on one more thing. As an experienced educator, an international education leader, what advice could you give to parents, to Canadian parents of school-aged children that would help them set themselves up for a strong foundation and a strong future?
I think it's really difficult to give advice to parents as a parent myself, and I think there's probably never been a more challenging time to be a parent, and probably never been a more challenging time for being a student as well. I think where children are judged and judged prematurely, it's not always helpful because the judgment is often against the standards of others. How well has someone done in a test? How well has someone done with respect to others in that grade or to peers? If the child's well-being isn't looked after, and that they don't feel safe and secure and content, then their educational progress is probably going to be very limited. So my advice to parents in an academy context is to make sure you do more than take an interest in their learning, but also listen to them, because they have a lot, young people of all ages have a lot to say. So it's easy to say, but I would say give them as much space within a safe, secure set of parameters. And in regard to schooling, see it as a partnership where you and the school and the young person are working together like a well-coordinated triangular relationship.
Yeah, thank you for spending your time with us. I think we learned so much. We were inspired, enlightened, educated, and I'm so excited to see what the future of the academies has in store. Thank you again, Graham.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
دکتر ونجر از توضیحاتتان در مورد فعالیت‌های آینده اکادمی‌های آقا خان و همچنان از توصیه‌های واقعاً عالی شما برای جوانان و آمادگی آنها برای آینده تشکر می‌کنیم. چه فارغ التحصیلان شگفت‌انگیز و با استعدادی. می‌دانید وقتی فکر می‌کنم که آموزش را به خدمت تبدیل کنیم، من به زمان خود در پروژه خدمات اجتماعی فکر می‌کنم. خدمت یک بخش جدا ناپذیری از زندگی روزمره ما بوده است و از همین طریق بود که بهترین خاطرات من در مومباسا شکل گرفت. روستاهای زیادی وجود دارند که به آب آشامیدنی پاک و سالم دسترسی ندارند. وقتی که باران میبارد و حوضها و گودالها پر آب میشوند، بعضی از ساکنان روستا از آن آب برای آشپزی، نظافت، شستشو و نوشیدن استفاده میکنند و همانطور که میتوانید تصور کنید بسیاری از آنها بیمار میشوند و تعدادی هم مبتلا به کرمهای معده میشوند. پروژه خدمات اجتماعی ما یک کلینیک کرمزدایی برای این روستایان ایجاد کرد. ما برای تامین داروی مورد نیاز آنها پول جمع می‌کنیم. ما از روستایان خواستیم تا یک روز شنبه به مکتب بیایند و داروهایی که تهیه کرده بودیم برایشان توزیع کردیم. مهمتر از آن، ما برای آنها با استفاده از بهترین روش آموزش دادیم که با استفاده از منابعی که در اختیار دارند به آب سالم دسترسی داشته باشند. بعد از رفتن من، آن برنامه برای 4 سال اجرا شد. این یک برنامه فوق‌العاده بود، اما هنگامی که من آنجا بودم، آن پروگرام تبدیل به یک برنامه بزرگتر شد. ما رابطه خوبی با مکتب روستا ایجاد کردیم و دانش آموزان آنها به مکتب ما آمدند و با آنها درباره مهارت‌های یادگیری زبان انگلیسی کار کردیم و برای آنها قبل از اینکه به خانه برگردند غذای مقوی فراهم کردیم، زیرا دسترسی به غذا نیز برای آنها تضمین نیست. آن رابطه بعداً منجر به ایجاد یک کتابخانه در مکتب آنها شد تا بتوانند بر اساس آنچه که با ما یاد گرفتند از آن استفاده کنند و استراتژی‌ها، تاکتیک‌ها و آموخته‌هایشان را به همتایانشان به اشتراک بگذارند. در مجموع این یک تحول بود. با فروتنی بگویم که بسیار احساس نیرومندی می‌کنید که بخشی از این پروژه باشید و صمیمانه آرزو دارم که همه دانش آموزان، چه دانشجویان فعلی یا فارغ التحصیلان جدید نیز فرصت دارند تا در پروژه‌های خدمات اجتماعی مشارکت نمایند. می‌خواهم یادآور شوم که اگر شما، فرزند یا نوحی شما در حال تحصیل هستید و یا در دوره بعد از متوسطه می‌خواهید آموزشتان را انجام دهید، با iicanada.org/postsec-registration ثبت نام کنید. ثبت نام به دانش آموزان اجازه می‌دهد تا از رویدادهای آینده باخبر شوند و برای درخواست تحصیلات حرفه‌ایشان مشورت بگیرند و از فرصت‌های جالب والنتری آگاه شوند. قبل از رفتن می خواهم به جماعت اطلاع دهم که یک ابتکار جالب و جدید برای ایجاد ارتباط و شبکه راه اندازی می شود. اولین اقدام این ابتکار 10,000 چای نام دارد که به روز دوشنبه شروع می شود. اگر در مورد اهداف حرفه‌ای تان فکر می کنید و می خواهید که با کسان دیگر شبکه‌ای ارتباط برقرار کنید و یا فقط با یک عضو جماعت که مثل شما است ارتباط پیدا کنید، این پلتفرم 10,000 چای به شما کمک می کند. برای معلومات بیشتر به iicanada.org مراجعه کنید. ما اکنون مثل همیشه برنامه را با موسیقی به پایان میبریم. موسیقی امشب آهنگی است به نام تریلیه که با 6 زبان و به اشتراک بیش از 100 هنرمند اسماعیلی اجرا شده است. این ترانه از ساعت‌های بیشماری که هزاران والنتیر به طور خستگی ناپذیر در سالهای گذشته روی آن کار نموده است تقدیر می‌نماید و روحیه خدمت به امام زمان را برجسته می‌سازد و نیز به ما کمک می‌کند تا احساس حمایت و ارتباط کنیم و خصوص در این سال پر از چالش‌هایی که ما داشتیم. لطفاً از موسیقی لذت ببرید.
When night's shadow sweeps the fields with darkness, illuminate the lamp of your heart, for light is only light if it knows how to impart. Intention without action cannot be true devotion, for the depth of your light must reach the bottom of every ocean. How do we plant seeds if we don't dig up the weeds of our own aversion? The rose only blooms with the preciousness of water and sunlight's conversion. We seek you like waves find the rhythm of the moon. For a symphony without a conductor is like an instrument without a tune. So may we continue to sing in honor of our beloved's name and keep others warm with every breath of this sacred flame.
जैसे फिजा में गुजरती हुई फूलों की खुशबू महकती हुई होठों पे बंसी गई एक हंसी तेरे लिए मौला करने की तेरी खिदमत में संवरने की ये नायत है कुछ करने की तेरी खिदमत में संवरने की ये सांसें भी और برغم الأعاصير والخراب يقهر الورد كل الصعاب بوی باغ و گلستان آید همی بوی یار مهربان آید همی باغ و گلستان آید دمه بوی یار مهربان آید همی زان در و دیوارهای کوی دوست عاشقان را بوی جان آید همی برای تو
après la pluie. Cette correspond à Moumalou.